Hi, I'm Bryce.
And I'm Jimmy.
We are telecom and creative professionals. We're also fans of podcasting as our respective careers give us an abundance of windshield time.
While there is a podcast for just about any obscure topic you can think of, there was no regular podcast pertaining to Montana politics.
And that is why, with our combined powers, we are Montana Voices Podcast.
We strive to be an independent voice for all issues pertaining to Montanans and Montana politics.
We also strive to be very forthcoming with our personal biases as we attempt to see beyond them.
Montana Voices Podcast does not operate in a vacuum. We need your support, whether that be listening to our cast, providing us feedback, sending us conversation topics, sharing our content, or providing financial support.
We look forward to a long career in podcasting with your added assistance.
Well, welcome to episode 29 of Montana Voices Podcast, and we're entitling this one Reboot because we are rebooting. It's been a few months. Various occupations have kept us away from the microphone for a bit. Like any failing series, we're adding some new blood and an interesting character that's going to single-handedly double our ratings, I think. So we'll introduce you to Bethany Brown.
Hi. How's it going?
We are lacking Bryce today, but he is a part of our podcast. We got off to a late start, and poor guy has to work at 5 a.m., which is unfortunate for him.
Very brutal.
Well, typically at this point, we bring you through our old issues, but I think we had Bears, some about Danes, and we were complaining about Bullock and Schweitzer.
Yes.
And Wisp. We've known each other for some time, Beth, and you heard our last podcast, which was 28, where we had Republican hopeful Tim Johnson on,
yes.
And you decided that I was way too far right, and this needed some new blood here. So
Yes, well, I can be a counter to that rightness with my leftness.
radical left compared.
Indeed.
Yeah, there was some pandering there, but it was nice to have him on. He's on to bigger and better things. He was on Voices of Montana, and then he was on that other podcast that we don't name here.
Oh.
So there's another podcast about Montana politics, which I don't think is as good. We definitely have more foam on the wall.
Ah, yes. We won't speak of them.
No free advertising for him, even though it looks like they are our first source. So we are talking about Tester and Danes, for as polar opposed they are, and granted they've never run against each other, that they are often voting in the same ilk. And the only difference appears to be that, Tester has a D in front of his name and vice versa for Danes.
Yes.
So, I always sort of referred to Tester as a Clinton Democrat, that he's the best Republican ever. I mean, he was for free trade, and he's for defense spending and farm bills, anything that brings the money down. But he's, honestly, I think a Republican except for a few of his ideas.
Any Montana Democrat who gets elected most likely is pretty centrist.
Centrist and maybe even right, I think.
Oh, I would say so. If you're going to have a shot in Montana, I have a feeling you're going to have to soften your leftist policy type thing.
Well, even that, that might be going even further left as, areas such as Missoula gets more population, and areas such as the, Highline and more of these very rural areas are decreasing in population, just as the small towns, which, I thought that the digital age was going to save the small town because everybody was going to telecommute from 2. Montana and live where they want, and sans a few exceptions, such as Phillipsburg, which we discussed in a previous episode, we're not seeing that revolution.
No.
Well, glad they are getting along. They, Danes and Tester co-sponsored the CSKT settlement bill. The Salish Kootenai tribes here on my part of the state have been trying to fight for water rights for the, it feels like the past couple decades, and are just starting to make headway. Last big news they had, they retained ownership of the Kerr Dam over in Polson, which has, changed hands, I think, from, it might have even been Montana Power at that time, but it's now in the hands of the tribe, and despite what some naysayers say, it has not exploded and caused a trade disagreement with Canada yet.
Oh, good. I would always be skeptical of the motivations of the state and federal government in terms of their dealings with the native people. It sounds like it is supposed to save us $400 million tax dollars, this agreement there.
Yeah, trying, but I think you're right about a bit of skepticism there. I mean, we don't have the best track record dealing with them. I mean, they were supposed to die on the reservations and no longer be a problem.
Yeah, that was most likely the plan.
I think it was literally the plan.
Okay.
We're not going to talk about blankets.
Yes, no blankets. It sounds like it would resolve a little bit of conflict regarding that, but at the same time, a particular article I read really didn't have much opinion from anyone in the tribe. So, I mean, it appears that the white people are happy with the bipartisan support for this bill, but I don't know.
Yeah, I've read a number of articles on this, and I find it hard to believe that everybody from the tribe is unreachable for comment. I mean, there's certainly elected officials, and they just had a tribal election, so this was sort of a big deal over there. Nothing in, as far as I can see, any newsprint. Maybe I'll have to pick up the Polson paper and see if they have anything interesting, but that's only available in print. Such a dinosaur of a platform.
I can understand, wanting to revise agreements that were made in the past that probably complicate how things run today with it, everything that's changed over that time. But yeah, I would like to hear a little bit more from the perspective of the people who would potentially be making a big compromise.
You're absolutely right, and and how well the federal government will deal with securing water rights, because it's more than just water rights on the reservation affecting people directly on the reservation. Controlling water flow is a huge thing as far as downstream and upstream, which is why that Kerr Dam decision, a number of years back was such a big ordeal. There were people that argued that since the river starts up in Canada, that this could jeopardize our relationship with Canada if the dam were mismanaged, say if it created flooding, further up north, or if it flooded downstream. So, certainly, Ashman, we'll see how it works out. We'll keep you updated. But on more Indian news, there's a Blackfoot language revival. It's not really a political point, but someone in Canada managed to make an app to learn the Blackfoot language, only available on iDevices at the moment.
Oh, that's very cool.
Had to look it up because the Canadian tribes, they're the Blackfoot Confederacy, so there's 4 tribes total, but they're all considered Blackfeet type tribes. I guess the best way to describe it is, although they're independent and different, in fact, they even stretch across, national borders, like Asians, kind of. Like there's a number of countries that are considered Asiatic countries, and it's sort of the same thing with the Blackfeet and these Pacific 4 tribes stretching across an.
Yeah, I like the idea of trying to preserve some of that. I would say it would be wonderful if our governments actually would grant them a bit of funding for such things, being as we're probably the ones responsible for depriving them of being able to pass on that language, etc.
We absolutely are. Grandmother came from Canada, where she was part Indian, or at a very small part Indian, not enough to get any recognition. I don't even think at the time, let alone now. When Canada was doing resettlements and also were handing out land similar to our Western land grab, whereas anybody that can come and build a farm got whatever land they wanted pretty much, or 180 acres depending. I think it was 180 acres institutionalized. Your kids would go off to school and they would literally get beaten if they spoke their native language to each other or even hinted at it. Even a single word would get them beaten, which brings out the old saying that you save the man, you kill the Indian.
Right.
So kids would often turn up dead, perhaps the defiant ones that tried to hang on to their language. And so my grandparents had a homestead, which was allotted from the federal government. However, written in Canadian law was that if you were Indian, you were not eligible for a homestead. So at any point, the entire farm could be taken away from them if somebody even thought they might be Indian. My grandma denied she was Indian until the day she died, probably because of that reason, because
can't blame her.
You deny your heritage to not starve to death.
Yeah, it's dangerous. They made it very dangerous.
Well, moving on to something that I think you might find interesting as a vapor yourself.
Oh, indeed.
But not flavored vape at the moment, I understand.
Well, I completely forgot about all of that happening and walked into the vape store today and the shelves were bare. No tasty flavors for me.
So it's just flavored vape? Is there just a non-flavored vape?
You can have like tobacco flavor, which, that's gross. I certainly wouldn't want any of that. One of the things that seems to be cropping up is a lot of issues with black market THC cartridges. And they're kind of lumping these cases of issues with that due to being created with vitamin E acetate. They're kind of lumping those in with the vape, regular vape juice, just nicotine based. And I'm thinking that is causing some confusion. because of course, there's going to be a little bit of overlap because people will go in and be like, "Oh, doctor, my lungs, they're all messed up," and they're going to say, "Well, so what have you been inhaling?" And if they don't have a medical marijuana card, and they have been using THC vape cartridges, they're probably not going to mention that. They're probably just going to say, "Oh, yeah, I've just been vaping normal good old nicotine. I have been vaping." Would never do anything illegal, of course.
Of course.
So you're going to get a little overlap there, with people who don't really want to admit that they've been using that. So, there's, I think it said something like 5 cases of that sort of thing happening here in Montana.
5 people.
Yes, 5.
Great Falls lost more people to murder this past month.
Right. There's also, I think there's a bit of confusion, I think. One of the misleading statistics that I've seen is kids who use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to smoke cigarettes in the future than kids who do not use e-cigarettes. That's misleading in the sense that many people use e-cigarettes and vaping to get off of cigarettes. And if you've had a previous history of using cigarettes, chances are you're much more likely than the average person who has never smoked before to relapse and smoke cigarettes. And it says kids. I'm not sure exactly what age range of people they're studying here.
And who made this study is going to be my next question, because, just saying that,
Well,
it doesn't take
FDA.
Other factors. FDA. You
Oh,
can't,
yeah, well...
it sounds like some government bureaucracy.
Right. I don't think there's too many of us that really trust the FDA to be a clear and unbiased, incorruptible organization. Personally, I have seen lots of people benefit from, if it's not just for their own health, honestly, for everybody around them, it's a hell of a lot nicer to have people smelling like bananas or strawberries than cigarette smoke. We have definitely established what's wrong with cigarettes and what they will do to you. We don't know as much about the long-term effects of vaping, but it's definitely been established that vaping is a better alternative to smoking. If you have a problem with smoking, that would be a good way to minimize that damage while still getting your nicotine. I mean, there are definitely the idea of heavy metals heating up. If you're chain vaping and you're heating up a coil inside the tank, those could potentially be, if you're getting something cheap, that could be low quality material, could be some kind of mystery metal in there getting real hot. So yeah, that's definitely a concerning thing. So people need to be careful, be responsible in researching how these things are supposed to work and when there may be a problem. So I think that's something people do need to be. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I am not a vapor, so I don't have the experience in this area that you do, of course, as somebody that's sitting in a cloud almost right now. But you're right, it is a lot nicer than smoking. As somebody who's been in used junkers where somebody's chain smoked in the thing and you can scrape the tar off the inside of the windows, I haven't seen that with vape. I mean, it is, even as a non-vapor, it's almost pleasant. It's something different. But I don't think, first of all, those statistics that the FDA pointed out, turns out the FDA, they're not considering environmental factors in there, because there are people that are going to smoke, that are going to use substances, they're going to vape regardless of what it is, and there are people that certainly vape and smoke at the same time. You're not considering for those factors of people, for people that are just predispositioned to maybe smoke to begin with.
Right.
And yes, there's somebody that was gonna smoke, and then they also vape, and you make a correlation between the two. But I can certainly see a small increase, but I'm maybe the right-leaning libertarian side is coming out of me here, that I don't think that the state even has the ability. There is already a lawsuit over this, and I think this will probably go up to the federal government or the Supreme Court unless it gets dropped, because the state doesn't have the right to do that, basically.
Right.
The smoke and vape products are regulated by the FDA, a federal agency, so I don't think Montana can decide to arbitrarily ban a flavor.
Right. We all know that the alarmist, angry people they point at cigarettes and they say it's the same thing. Well, we certainly still have cigarettes on the shelves. Banning flavors, I think, is not really that helpful. I just don't think it is.
Is that a flavor in your hand right now?
Oh, yes, it is. That's the flavor.
Saying it's completely possible to get flavored vape at this moment.
Depends, actually, if you know somebody who just makes it themselves at home and they're not selling it if they're giving it to you and they're just making some for themselves. I suppose you could definitely still get it. And therein lies another potential complication of a ban such as this. Would you prefer that there be a facility where these things are being created, or would you prefer they're being concocted in Randy's tool shed? Because there's that too.
Randy's a good guy. I appreciate.
Yeah, Randy's a good guy.
So it's sort of, I've been sort of watching the vape thing because it's been interesting to me to see how the federal and state government deals with vaping, because vaping is a different industry than smoking, where there's a few monoliths that are huge and have had in the past massive influence, and according to some people still do.
Oh, yeah.
To see how agnostic our government is or is not being regarding those two, because I think they're in a little bit of conflict with each other, even though some tobacco manufacturers are selling vape items. As I understand, they're not good vape items, but
yeah, that's kind of the deal there. And I would say that really, the war on vaping is a war against small entrepreneurs. You've got, you have tobacco lobbyists and you have huge cigarette companies and tobacco companies. The majority of the vaping industry is very wide range of smaller businesses, and the people who are crafting the juices, etc. There's a lot of people who, in an economy that is less and less worker friendly, we're getting to a point where you can't just go to work for a company and expect they're going to take care of you forever. You're going to have a retirement, etc. Your job's going to last. We don't live in a world where that's really a thing anymore. So when people go out there and they, there's a new industry, they get in on the ground level and they start developing something, going into business for themselves. This is really a harsh blow for people in that category who have worked hard to try and establish something for themselves and managed to start doing something. It's too bad.
That's who it's really hurting here. I mean, suggesting that, this flavor ban isn't going to last for a long time. It's going to go away. It's going to be challenged, or it's just going to be dropped completely by Bullock, within the next couple of months.
So.
But who can survive a couple months of not making profit on their main item? I mean, your little guys are going to go out of business, and suddenly there's only Marlboro branded,
Juul.
They're bringing the Camel back. Yes, it's
Juul.
Juul
Is
that Marlboro or Philip Morris?
Yep.
I've seen it in gas stations, and it's just, from what I understand, a crappy product.
Yeah. Well, they use little pods and whatnot, and I don't know. I've never been a fan. I've heard lots of stories of mismanagement.
That'll be interesting when the small companies literally go under because of this. You mean emergency vaping?
Yeah.
This is an emergency. 5 people have been affected.
Right. Well, you're not the only person who has a bit of a conspiratorial mind when it comes to this, as far as, what's going to happen to all these people that are vaping when they can't, when they try and shut down these shops, and when, don't have the fabulous flavors, so people aren't going to be buying as much for the fun of it. A very good chance that a lot of those people go back to smoking cigarettes, and who wins there? Well, what do you know?
Yeah, I know people that vape as a direct substitute. If, say, they forget their vape, but I was with a guy, I was working with him, and he forgot his vape charger and immediately went to the store and got a pack of cigarettes because he needed to have something orally.
Yeah, I've seen that in action myself. It's not great. You've got smaller businesses that I really feel like, a lot of sympathy and empathy for people trying to do their own thing. So you've got the little guy, and you've also got the fact that, it has definitely been established that vaping is not going to kill you as fast, at least, as as cigarettes are. So, you can support small businesses, you can support people's personal rights to do what they feel like doing with their bodies, and you can support people having a choice. It's just, it shouldn't all be in the hands of big tobacco companies.
That's sort of my idea. People should have a choice. I never understood vaping to be a completely, just as an outsider, I'm like, there's got to be some risk with it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm 100% willing to.
I don't think your lungs are meant to inhale
Yeah.
boiling liquid or whatever, as I understand. I think any reasonable adult can say, yeah, that's maybe not natural, and there are probably some risks with it, but I still enjoy doing it.
Right.
That seems reasonable to me that as an adult you'll be able to say that and take those risks into account. And same thing with smoking. I mean, there's a little warning on the pack. You understand it's not good for you, but if you still want to smoke, it's nobody's prerogative but yours, I think.
Well, there's warnings on the vape juice too. So, it's
They got
yeah.
I think where we sort of villainize and big tobacco is where they spent a good amount of money and a good amount of time knowing that smoking would kill you and doing everything they could to make you not know that.
Right.
So that's where I think that changed. And if Big Vape was doing that, if there was a Big Vape and not Randy back in the shed, that I would be against that as well. But I guess we might as well turn this into the 18 to 20-year-old cigarette ban. That's national now. You cannot smoke until you're 21.
Yep. Well, I suppose that works too.
Well, I guess we have to decide when you're an adult.
Right.
This has been the question with alcohol for ever, I think. You can give your life for your country, but you can't have a shot of whiskey while you're dying. But
Right. Well, I'm of the opinion that younger people are a lot more educated today, and they have a lot more ability to educate themselves if they choose to. And in light of that, I don't see any problem with lowering voting ages, for example.
you just want Bernie to
I
win.
may.
That's
I may. That may be a thing.
that is a good point. I mean, you can legally you're not an adult till you're 18, but I use that military example,
Right.
and you can sign up for the military on a delayed entry program when you're 16. So you're making those adult decisions and getting binded into a lifelong contract potentially. You still can't vote, which is interesting.
Yes.
You can't vote for your own direct commander-in-chief.
Yeah, and that's, seems a little backwards.
Moving on to some deaths. I had a note here about some unsolved murders, and apparently I didn't put the link in here. But that was on the Crow Reservation, I think. We're still looking. That was in the 80s. But
yes.
moving on to current murders, Great Falls has been in even national news recently with the casino shootings, which is unfortunate for you guys.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, everybody seems to, people like the idea of working in a casino because you get good tips, etc. But that seems like quite a risk.
Yeah, maybe a small risk. I think there was only one of 10,000 casinos in Great Falls that was actually hit, if I'm thinking right.
Well,
There's a
people
lot
do
of
love
them,
to
is what
try
I'm
and rob
saying.
them, though.
There's-
People really like to rob them.
Yeah.
When I worked at
That I can
I
understand.
did work at a security company for a while, and panic button alarms, I suppose, there's not that many businesses that would have a panic button, but by and large, the only times there was actually anybody hitting that panic button for a real reason was when a casino's getting robbed, and I did see that a few times.
Is this more frequent than I thought it was?
It might be a
And
little bit more frequent. But not shooting people, per se. I mean, they'll go in and threaten them,
Yeah, that's-
and be like, give me your money, and it's probably about the extent of it. I also had a ex-boyfriend whose girlfriend decided she was going to go try and rob a casino with her idiot boyfriend, and then she went to prison.
Oh, well, sounds like that's exactly where she
Yeah,
should be, given these decisions. Now I guess we'll have to look up the numbers and how many casino robberies there are. I mean, I don't feel that bad about casinos getting robbed, to be honest
No, I
with
don't
you.
either, really.
I should, but
it's the nature of the whole
I don't
thing.
think people should be robbing
Oh,
them.
no.
But it's...
My sympathy lies with the casino attendants who have to deal with that kind of a alarming situation happening to them. And there's enough, I don't know. Seems like some of those casinos end up kind of dead during certain periods of time. That's one of the reasons I would not personally want to work as a casino attendant. I prioritize safety at work, and just based on what I've seen, this seems like a good place to have some unnecessary interactions.
Yeah, and I just give them the money.
Right? Oh yeah, give them the money, get them out of there.
Yeah,
Just
whatever.
take the money.
Take it.
I don't. I'm benefiting from a a sinful gambling operation. Just take the money. It is our penance. Go.
Yeah, I was a manager at an overnight Burger King. Burger King's in Billings, and when they led the transition to making them 24 hours, and they were all 24 hours, I couldn't tell you if they still are now. But one of the concerns was getting robbed because we were going to be open 24 hours, and upper management was like, well, we should just not give them the money. I was like, nope, I'll throw an entire cash register at them. I could care less. The $500 in here is just, and robbers should know that I don't care. It's not even my money. You know, at worst, it's an inconvenience for me unless you're going to get physical, but I won't just give it to you.
Right.
I shouldn't suggest that to robbers that
they
it's
don't
easy,
pay
but
casino attendants enough to, be body shields for the cash register. Come on now.
They do not work for Securitas or any other.
No. They ain't got the Krav Maga, none of that. No.
No, the Blackwater. I mean, that's who should be inside of our casinos.
Right? Yeah, Blackwater. I do believe they've rebranded to something like Tiger Swan. Swan.
That sounds just as convincing.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and that follows up. We had those 3 deaths, and of course, the perpetrator was killed in the chase. Unfortunately, next to a school, which is, I think, probably, one of the bad things about this. I mean, there's a lot that I don't agree with gambling, but like I said, as an adult, if you want to gamble, you should be able to do it in safety. So
I would agree.
I guess, if I understand, we still don't have the details on if this was a robbery or something else going wrong here. I couldn't tell you at this point.
Could be a personal situation.
Yeah, maybe. Well, what else do we have going on here? About lighting.
Ah, yes.
Important to security. That'll be our segue into this.
You know what it is? It is.
You're right.
Dark alleyways.
But,
crimes happen there.
Once again, exactly. Out of sight, out of mind.
Very true.
Missoula's holding us back. My town. Northwestern Energy wants to update all of their, I think, high-pressure sodium lamps, which are basically a big incandescent lamp to an LED, which sounds like it would work. However, Missoula is raising concerns, or our county or city and county commissioners are raising concern because that LED lighting might not meet our very stringent lighting requirements for hue and brightness and etc.
Yeah, I suppose I would have to ask you how you feel about that. Are you a person who has big concerns about light pollution? Is that something you feel like is a problem?
Sort of the opposite for Missoula. There is quite a few dark areas here, I think, because of this ordinance. One of the things it states is it can't carry over into other properties and have a certain intensity from outside your property, essentially, or outside of the area it's supposed to be servicing. Maybe that sort of lends into the open spaces, open places sort of campaign, where we made a point to have these big open areas that are, just, an open area that's free to go to that people can enjoy. And, of course, there's consequences of that. Most recent one, they opened up a new conservation area right across the street from the largest rescue mission in Montana, which is, as far as I can see, going exactly how everybody thought it would go. Yes, we went there today, and it's not pleasant.
A lot of needles and spoons and stuff.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
There was some needles, quite a bit of garbage, which is a lot of it was there before, because this was right across before. They just made the access easier in that area to get into that area. Before, you had to walk around and kind of hide down by the river to get to this spot. But now there's a staircase that leads right down into this area, so it's not so much hiding. So it always was kind of a crap show down there.
Well, I'm sure the junkies who used to enjoy their privacy there are very upset.
Yeah, you have to move on, or I would hope not be junkies, but
you'd hope not, but it's Missoula.
Yeah, it's Missoula. I would like to think they do better drugs, but the needles I found today say differently.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. I keep hearing a lot of that. I hear that the drug problem is getting worse over there. It's too bad. Yeah, for some reason, people finding needles is just a thing.
Thousands of places to put them, but a junkie doesn't really care a whole lot. Just about every bathroom I see has a Sharps dispensary.
Man, yeah, that's different than it was, say, 7-8 years ago. I never used to hear it that often, but it's happening.
Yeah, and there's people that are against that. I mean, the opioid crisis is in full effect, and it's not just a Missoula problem, but Missoula, you might argue that it's a chicken and an egg thing, whereas Missoula makes a point to have these resources for the homeless and for people that are, disenfranchised in one way or another, whether that's solving a problem, which it definitely does, or if it's also attracting a problem to come to Missoula. So I understand other places, you don't get to be homeless in Bozeman, as we discussed on a previous cast. Being homeless in Bozeman gets you a bus ticket to Missoula.
Oh, well, that's wonderful for Missoula.
Also wonderful for Greyhound.
Oh, well, yeah, well, I'm sure. That's a nice contract for him, right?
Used to know, a person that worked at, a bus station, and it was a consistent problem. Somebody would be, picked up in downtown Great Falls and would be shipped on a bus, usually to Missoula, sometimes Billings, but just get that problem out of your neighborhood, and then this person would get sent on a bus, and they'd have the same problem wherever they came from, and the police would ask, "Where do you want to go? You don't live here," and they'd say Great Falls, where they're from, and they would get shipped right back.
Shuffling. Just shuffle them around.
Yeah, suppose it's warm on the bus, I guess.
Yeah, thank God it's warm on the bus. But yeah, as far as, I would say, in a city where you have considerable homeless and drug problem, you probably want places to be decently lit if people are going to be, and I'd say if you're an astronomer or something, there's lots of wide open spaces all around outside the city that you could go to. I'm trying to think of what would cause a real problem as far as light pollution goes, and I immediately think of the Seinfeld episode where Kramer has a chicken shack neon sign outside of his window, and nobody wants that kind of weirdness, but I don't think that's what this is helping or supposed to help, because I'm pretty sure that kind of thing already exists and nobody's doing anything about that. Who's being affected by this light pollution that's so upset?
That is a good point, and another point to consider as well is that Northwestern Energy is going to be upgrading these, and directly, since they are a regulated monopoly, pass those costs directly onto the consumer, and of course the savings as well for the city in this case, because they do charge the electricity to the city. It's not free.
Yes.
There is no free lunch, Beth. But so Northwestern Energy would be funding it, being paid back by individual consumers, and then the cities would be eventually saving money on electricity rates as they slowly get replaced.
Right.
So it's sort of almost a win for Northwestern Energy, because the Public Service Commission pretty much guarantees, well, they do guarantee them profit in every single venture they do, including replacing light bulbs with a different type. So there is some...
Right.
Such as regulated monopoly, which is something we've discussed in great length of the Public Service Commission and their, maybe failings, especially when you have the Public Service Commission, not the chairman, but the coal strip guy. I can't remember his name, but he went on the podcast that we don't mention and was very clear that it's not the Public Service Commission's responsibility to represent consumers.
Well, that wouldn't shock me. I personally... pretty skeptical of both groups of people who would be calling the shots on this. Like, they're both pretty corruptible, have a history of issues. So I don't know. Who's got the consumer in mind? I don't know.
Oh, well, really nobody.
No.
So
the consumer sometimes.
But I'm also a little surprised that Missoula isn't jumping on. There is some electrical cost savings, and not just for saving money, but for our environment in general.
Yeah, that's why I would say probably the answer to that whole question is to give the people time to research what exactly the implications would be of the way that Northwestern Energy wants to do it, and it might take time, but I'd rather they take a little time to make sure nobody's going to be getting royally screwed before moving forward. But yeah, overall, it sounds like it would be an improvement, and it will be an inevitability eventually, I'm sure, to upgrade those to LEDs.
Well, yeah, LEDs have been around for 20-some years on a mass basis.
Right, yeah,
so other
probably
cities
about time.
have entirely done.
But nobody wants to get, everybody hates seeing the rates go up. I certainly do.
So I guess that greenish sort of tint glow that you see from the streetlights and the amberish green, I guess that'll be a thing of the past. I can just everything's LED. It's that harsh white light, but of course they can tint it as anything they want.
But my nostalgia.
hopefully it's not how it was in the old movies. It's
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yes, we'll carry on to our last bit of business is about the Little Shell. When we wrote down the script for this one, the Little Shell was potentially going to be an actual tribe with federal recognition, and now it looks like it actually is.
Cool.
So we stuck it into a defense bill.
Yep. Well, that's how you get things done. You attach it to something you can't live without.
Defense.
There you go. Well, I mean, we sure like to pass defense spending. So,
Yep.
you just tack your special little project onto, say like the budget, whatever. You got to keep things rolling. If you just attach something like that, yeah. Sometimes that can work for the better.
Well, sometimes, for a brief moment in time, Bill Clinton had line item veto. So we could go through and just be like, yeah, this is a great bill except for this. Let me get my Sharpie.
Yep.
Just handle that. And then apparently that's unconstitutional, or so we're later told.
I suppose, whatever.
So,
I don't know.
what a different time. A House and Senate of Republicans gave Bill Clinton line item veto.
That is very shocking.
That's crazy. What a different
It
time.
really is.
Can't imagine that happening today.
No,
Where
I
we're-
cannot. Oof, man. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Which is,
I mean,
Well, I say
it
Bill
would
Clinton
probably be
was
safe during this presidency since I don't think he reads much of anything. I can see him, make believing and having fun with a Sharpie, though.
yes, make believing. It'll be a fun game. No, we don't need this. I mean, he already does.
That's just part of the above, sir. Like, oh, well, it's gone now.
We've typically tried to avoid federal politics
makes sense
in the
to me.
past, but
I take it back.
But a quick blurb. No, don't take it back. We've already gone there. It's been opened up. We are in impeachment fervor at the moment.
Indeed we are.
And I don't think it works out well for anyone.
No, I've been telling people.
Well, except maybe the president. I think it works out all right.
Oh,
for
yeah,
him.
it sounds like it works great for him.
Well,
But he's a Hollywood man. He's a whole lot of fun for him.
Well, I mean, there is no bad news. It's sort of the old thing. If people are talking about you, that's good. Mm-hmm. And there's no shortage of rhetoric on that. So I don't think I'd be very surprised if it went through the Senate and got passed.
Oh, yeah, I'd be very shocked. Personally, I've always felt that, we should just let him, whoever we can identify this movement as, just let them cry it out and let them do their thing for 4 years, and then we'll move on. I think you're kind of fueling some of the paranoia that is already there if you go after them.
Well,
Just let them have their time. Let them mess everything up, and hopefully they'll realize by then they're like, okay, we messed things up. It's good. Now we're done, and we're gonna take a nap. If you give them a bunch of coffee in the form of impeachment, we're gonna have people wanting to get involved in the big drama of the century.
I think
if,
you're
even
right
if
there.
you could remove him, how much good would it really do necessarily? I mean, there's been so many people appointed in there. There's already,
I mean, there's they must really like Mike Pence. I mean, it's.
I don't, and that's a big reason I don't think I would rather Trump kind of muck around and not know what he's doing and hopefully accomplish not that much than to shove him out and have someone like Pence empowered by all of the corrupt craziness that's, all of that power for him. He's going to do more with it. And I know he's coming for women's reproductive health, etc. That's definitely something that he would love to come for, and I don't want it.
Well,
and, hey, Trump's probably paid for many an abortion.
I mean,
I'll just
that's chump
let
change
him
for
ignore that issue.
But Trump, I don't think he's done much on the subject of abortion, and he did campaign
Exactly.
on it.
He's all talk when it comes to that, and which I am grateful for. Just leave it alone. Be distracted by something else.
This impeachment, that's a great distraction. So
Yeah, well,
So makeup
That's fine
of
with me.
the Senate, where this needs to pass with a 2/3 vote, that's 66%, is really close to 50-50, I think 51-49 for the Republicans. There's a few independents in there, such as Sanders, who is undoubtedly going to vote with the Democrats on this, and another guy who was a Democrat but recently decided to be a Republican. So
oh yes.
yeah, another independent, but make up 51-49. So you would need what is that, some 20-some Republicans to change their mind and on Trump.
That's a lot of mind changing.
Yeah, it's a lot of mind changing. I don't think it's going to happen, which is maybe unfortunate for them.
Very
because,
doubtful.
Things, even if he's president or not, things are going to work out just fine for Trump. He's set. Like, there's money to be made.
Right. He was golfing.
Yeah.
He was golfing during the impeachment.
Things are going to work out well for him, but then you have these people that really bat hard for him and just dig their own graves, it sounds like. We're watching Giuliani do it, whereas Giuliani he's the next fall guy. He's setting himself up for it perfectly.
Right.
Yeah.
Make room, Chris Christie.
Yep, Chris Christie. Yes. Chris Christie can't make room for much, but
Chris Christie came.
Gee, we shouldn't. All right,
sorry.
As a self-identified husky man, I can make these jokes like like only black people can make fun of blacks. So it's the same thing.
Fair.
As a fat
fair.
person, I can make fun of Chris Christie.
I'll leave the cake jokes to you.
Excellent. I'll run with it. But
Good.
Giuliani the next to go down. I mean, Christie. There was Manafort, who I guess was just acquitted, if I understand right.
I believe so. Yes.
All right. Well, I did not see
Was
that.
acquitted or indicted or something. I don't know.
Oh, no,
that I don't remember.
Well, it's I think being appealed again, but the case was dismissed by the New York court where it was tried. So, yeah, this is
Good news for him.
yeah, very dumb. Well, I don't think Manafort has much of a career left and can't do much of anything else. I would think.
Probably not.
Yeah. So.
Maybe he'll write a book.
Yeah. So why these guys, bat so hard for Trump, who's just going to cuck them essentially?
Yeah, I don't really understand it.
There's some loyalty, I guess. I mean, they have seen the Trump following and the Trump fervor and want some of that for themselves is all I can figure. I mean,
I think they just don't want to be at the angry end of it. If he does end up being our God Emperor, then they want to be safe from his wrath. I imagine he probably functions similar to the Clinton motto of "If you're not with us, you're against us."
he absolutely does. Absolutely does.
They have more in common than we would like to think.
Yeah, almost like
in fact, they
wouldn't have
hang
mattered.
out with each other and have overlapping friend circles and everything.
Yeah, very interesting. When he first started running, I thought it was just to help Hillary, honestly. It's like they're old-time friends.
Me too.
It completely makes sense. And he was formerly even self-proclaimed Democrat before he changed his mind and started to run Republican.
Yeah, I actually kind of thought, I always kind of thought maybe what happened is, he was just kind of a joke candidate, but he just got a taste of the possibility that his brand could really benefit from this exposure. And then he just kind of ran away with it and, ended up with the presidency. And maybe that was the plan, was for him to be a joke, but I heard he was pretty surprised when he realized he'd won.
As was I. So
Me too. We're all very surprised.
yeah, long for the days of the responsibleness of Mitt Romney. Remember Mitt Romney?
Mitt Romney.
Very buttoned
in
up.
his magic underwear.
All right, we got off the train on that one.
Sure did.
Well, it doesn't make sense for the Democrats. It makes less sense for Republicans. I don't think this works out well for Democrats. It's going to embolden the Republicans, and when this all fails, it just shows how little they can actually get done. Why would we want to elect one of them? So,
Right.
do they want 4 more years of Trump? Because it seems like they're batting for him.
Yep. Well, I mean, look at what he's going to have done to the Republican Party as far as, well, what values does Trump espouse that the right is supposed to represent? Have you seen our spending?
No, I have, and it's not conservative fiscal policy, that's for sure.
He certainly is not.
Certainly is
And
not.
then you got all the porn stars and the what have yous, and he can do the multiple wives and, hush money and Epstein connections all over the place. So it's like, what exactly is it about him that represents you besides, the corruption?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that Epstein guy didn't kill himself.
Yeah, that's what I don't think he would.
Well, somebody couldn't live with him. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it at that. Hate if we were involved in any accidents.
Indeed. We will leave that one alone.
Do they represent? And sort of the thing, after he really became a candidate that was running and had some potential, I was really the Republican Party was really split on it. There was some really hard always Trumpers and really hard never Trumpers. Like, I can't do that. Does my hatred of Hillary overcome my just that bad taste in your mouth that Trump leaves you? But yeah, apparently a majority of them got over it. So,
Oh yeah, they all bent the knee.
exactly. Ironic. Let's quickly tie it back into Montana politics. John Tester, who, of course, ran essentially against Trump. I mean, I honestly, Rosendale. Was it Rosendale the last election, I believe?
I think so.
All hat, no cattle guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, Maryland Matt, or I might be wrong on that, but I can't even remember the candidate because Tester was running against Trump. Was that Dr. Candy guy that Tester had the audacity to question?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember his name either, but he was appointed to be the head of the VA, and apparently he was a Mr. Feelgood doctor sort of type guy. And
Mr. Feelgood.
yeah, and Tester sort of outed him in the congressional hearing. The nomination got away. I mean, wasn't going to go through, and so he withdrew. But then Trump had it out for Tester for quite some time.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So I don't think we'll see him again. He has bigger fish to fry at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
So he won't
That's how I hear it's going to go.
Won't have to endure the cost of another presidential trip to Montana.
Well, he did send Donnie Jr. up here a while ago, didn't he?
I think Donnie Jr. just likes to hunt bison or something.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Yeah, there's been rumors that he is going to get himself a ranch somewhere around here. A private reserve ranch for hunting, it sounds like.
Well, that's unpleasant.
Yeah, well, Bozeman always has room for another billionaire. Or millionaire.
No joke.
Millionaire? I couldn't even tell you. Got to see them tax return. Yeah, that'll be interesting if he does become a Montana citizen. He can vote against Tester personally.
Oh, yes. Well, wouldn't that be good for him?
Who I think is termed out, by the way. So...
Yeah, I believe so. He's been in there a while.
Yeah, so he'd have to go to the House or the governor, which obviously, if he wants to run again or wants to get back to wheat farming.
Big dirt.
Yep, big dirt, big wheat.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have gone through our list here. So that has been episode 29 of Montana Voices podcast, joined by new young blood who I guarantee will double our ratings.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Driving them up.
Got our website. It's going to be montanavoicespodcast.com. If you'd like to email us, it's going to be montanavoices@gmail.com. Our Twitter page, as usual, is going to be @Montana_voices. Then our Facebook page, where we are currently live at right now, is going to be at Montana Voices Podcast. Then you can find all of our episodes on YouTube. Just search for Montana Voices Podcast here, and then